The Empress's miscalculation. Empress Zora of the Caldari Empire stood on the observation deck of her flagship, the Eternal Dominion, gazing at the holographic display of known space. Her seven-fingered hand traced the borders of her realm, a vast collection of over 300 star systems conquered across millennia. The bioluminescent patterns on her azure skin pulsed with pride as she contemplated her legacy. 15 new worlds added to the empire during her 2-century reign. Your Radiance, High General Vorex spoke from behind her, his voice carrying the distinctive metallic resonance of the warrior caste. The human delegation awaits your decision. Zara didn't turn. These humans, these soft, fragile creatures who had stumbled into Caldari territory barely 50 years ago, were becoming an irritation. Their colonies were expanding too rapidly, their technology advancing at an alarming rate. Yet they remained so, primitive in many ways, emotional, unpredictable. Let them wait, she said. Perhaps it will teach them patience. With respect, Empress, Vorex persisted. Their representative seems agitated. Their translation matrix indicates growing frustration. Zara finally turned, her height allowing her to tower over the general despite his impressive stature. And should I, Empress of the Caldari, sovereign of the 3 spiral arms, adjust my schedule for the comfort of a species that has barely mastered basic interstellar travel? Vorex's bioluminescence flickered in discomfort. Of course not, Your Radiance, but our intelligence suggests the humans may be more formidable than initially assessed. Intelligence. Zara laughed, the sound echoing like crystal bells through the chamber. From Diplomatic Officer Tenza, she has always been overly cautious. The humans have barely established 40 colonies. Their ships are crude, their weapons primitive. They rely on physical projectiles and basic energy weapons while we harness the power of stars. She waved dismissively at the holographic display, zooming in on Earth's solar system. Look at them. One primary homeworld, a few terraform-in-progress colonies. Their military capabilities are negligible compared to even our smallest provincial fleet. Yet they have survived encounters with the Vrek horde, Vorex noted quietly. Zara paused. The Vrek, insectoid marauders at the edge of known space, were indeed formidable opponents. Luck, she concluded, or perhaps the Vrek were simply testing them, as we test any new species. She made her decision. Inform the human delegation that the Caldari Empire rejects their proposed border adjustments. Our expansion into the Orion Spur will continue as planned. Their colonies in that region may submit to our protection or relocate. Vorex's bioluminescence dimmed. They have indicated such a response would be considered an act of aggression, Your Radiance. Then let them consider it such, Zara said coldly. If they wish to demonstrate their displeasure, they are welcome to try. Ambassador Elena Chen knew the meeting had gone poorly the moment she saw the Caldari diplomatic officer's skin patterns shift to a deep indigo. After 3 years of careful negotiations, countless concessions, and endless patience with Caldari protocol, they were back to square one. The Empress has considered your proposal. Tenza, the Caldari diplomat, said formally. The Empire finds it unacceptable. Elena kept her expression neutral despite the sinking feeling in her stomach. Has the Empress offered a counter-proposal? The Empress has decreed that human settlements in the Orion Spur may accept Caldari authority or relocate. This decision is final. Elena took a deep breath. With respect, those are colonies with millions of inhabitants. Relocation is not feasible, and we cannot accept foreign sovereignty over United Earth territories. Then prepare them for transition to Caldari governance. Tenza replied indifferently. The process need not be disruptive if your people cooperate. Elena felt a flare of anger but suppressed it. Getting emotional wouldn't help. Please inform Empress Zora that Earth must respectfully reject these terms. We request additional time for negotiation. The Empress has concluded negotiations. Tenza's tone was final. This meeting is adjourned. As the Caldari delegation departed, Elena's aide, Marcus, approached. That went about as well as expected, he muttered. Worse, Elena replied, gathering her datapads. Contact Earth Command immediately. We need to evacuate as many civilians from the border colonies as possible. You think they'll actually attack? Marcus looked shocked. I think, Elena said grimly, that the Caldari have made a grave miscalculation about humanity, and we're all about to pay the price for it. 6 weeks later, Empress Zora stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The Caldari preemptive strike against the human border worlds, intended as a show of force to bring the upstart species to heel, had gone catastrophically wrong. Explain this, she demanded, her voice dangerously quiet. Admiral Meklov, usually impeccably composed, now fidgeted visibly. The humans were prepared, Your Radiance. When our forces entered the Proxima system, they encountered defensive measures far beyond our intelligence estimates. Specify, Zara hissed. Orbital platforms with energy weapons comparable to our destroyer-class vessels. Planetary shields we cannot penetrate with standard bombardment. And their fleet. He hesitated. What about their fleet? Zara demanded. They appeared from nowhere, Your Radiance. Our intelligence suggested they possessed perhaps 80 combat-capable vessels. The force that repelled our attack numbered over 500. Zara's bioluminescence flared with rage. Impossible. Where were these ships hiding? How did we miss them? Unknown. Empress. Their FTL signatures were unusual. They may have developed stealth technologies that our sensors cannot detect reliably. The implications were staggering. If the humans had concealed hundreds of warships, what else were they hiding? Had diplomatic officer Tenza been right all along? Casualties, she asked. We lost 37 vessels, including the battlecruiser Divine Ascendance. Meklov's voice was nearly a whisper. Over 12,000 Caldari warriors. Zara turned away, struggling to maintain her composure. The Caldari hadn't suffered losses like this in generations. Their response, she finally asked. Thus far, they have only defended their territory. They have not pursued our retreating forces or launched counterattacks. Yet, Zara said ominously, dispatch diplomatic envoys immediately. We will offer. She was interrupted by the blaring of emergency alarms. The tactical display flickered and expanded, showing a massive energy signature at the edge of the Caldari home system. What is happening? She demanded. The tactical officer's voice shook. Multiple FTL signatures, Your Radiance. Thousands of them. Thousands. Zara repeated in disbelief. The display resolved, showing the emerging fleet, ship after ship, appearing in perfect formation. Hundreds. Then thousands. 2,000 vessels detected, Your Radiance, the tactical officer reported, his bioluminescence nearly dark with fear. Configuration matches human supercarriers and escort vessels. They're positioning themselves outside our defensive perimeter, but within weapons range of our outer colonies. Zara stared at the display, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. 2,000 carriers, each likely carrying hundreds of smaller craft, a force that could reduce the Caldari homeworld to ash. How had she misjudged them so badly? The communication system chimed. Your Radiance, said the communications officer. We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Text only. Display it, Zara ordered, her voice barely audible. The message appeared on the screen, simple and devastating in its brevity. Empress Zora of the Caldari Empire. You have attacked sovereign human territory without provocation. You have killed innocent civilians. You have rejected peaceful coexistence. We are prepared to demonstrate the full consequences of these actions. However, we offer one final opportunity for diplomatic resolution. You have 6 hours to respond. Choose wisely. Zara read the message twice, then looked up at the sea of terrified faces surrounding her in the command center. Her counselors, her generals, her admirals, all those who had assured her of Caldari's superiority, who had dismissed the humans as primitives barely worth diplomatic consideration. Get me our diplomatic course, she said quietly. Immediately, Admiral Meklov stepped forward. Your Radiance, perhaps we should consider a preemptive strike. Our planetary defenses were designed to repel forces a fraction of this size. Zara cut him off. No, Admiral. I will not condemn our homeworld to destruction due to pride. She turned to the communications officer. Prepare a response to the humans. We accept their offer of diplomatic negotiations. As her staff scrambled to comply, Zara returned her gaze to the tactical display, watching the massive human fleet holding position with perfect discipline. She had gravely underestimated these humans, their technology, their military capabilities, and most of all, their resolve. But she suspected her greatest miscalculation was yet to be revealed. Defiance and reconciliation. The Grand Council chamber of the Caldari Empire had never been so tense. Empress Zora sat rigid on her crystalline throne, surrounded by her most trusted advisors and military leaders, though trusted now seemed a bitter joke. For 3 hours, they had watched in mounting horror as the human fleet methodically neutralized the Caldari's outer defense platforms. Another orbital defense cluster has gone silent. Your Radiance, reported Admiral Meklov, his voice hollow. No survivors. They're being precise, noted strategic advisor Lenz, studying the tactical displays. Targeting only military installations, avoiding civilian centers. How merciful of them, Zara replied, acid in her tone. Shall we express our gratitude as they dismantle our defenses layer by layer? No one answered. What could they say? The humans were demonstrating technological superiority that shouldn't have been possible for such a young spacefaring species. Their weapons penetrated Caldari shields as if they weren't there. Their targeting systems found vulnerabilities no one knew existed. And most disturbing of all, they seemed to predict Caldari tactical responses before they were implemented. Where is our diplomatic team? Zara demanded. Still in transit to the neutral meeting point, Your Radiance, replied Royal Secretary Vex. The humans insisted on a location equidistant from both fleets. A reasonable precaution, Zara murmured, given our history of reasonableness. The chamber doors burst open as High Counselor Drax entered, followed by a contingent of the Royal Guard. Drax, ancient, respected, and traditionally one of Zora's strongest supporters, now looked at her with barely concealed contempt. High Counselor, Zora acknowledged him. Have you come to offer tactical insights? Your military experience is centuries out of date, but perhaps nostalgia will save us where modern weapons cannot. Drax ignored her sarcasm. I come on behalf of the noble houses, Your Radiance. His voice carried throughout the chamber. We have convened an emergency session of the Ancient Council. Zara's bioluminescence flickered in surprise. The Ancient Council hadn't been convened in over 500 years. The articles of governance are clear, Drax continued. When an empress threatens the very existence of the Caldari through catastrophic misjudgment, the Ancient Council may temporarily assume executive authority. Zara rose from her throne, fury radiating from her. You dare. While enemy ships sit in our system. Because enemy ships sit in our system, Drax corrected. Ships you provoked through arrogance and incompetence. The Council has reviewed the intelligence reports you ignored, the diplomatic warnings you dismissed. Your actions have brought us to the brink of extinction. This is treason, Zara hissed. This is survival, Drax countered. He turned to the Royal Guard. Escort the Empress to her quarters. She is relieved of command, effective immediately. To Zara's shock, the guards moved to comply, surrounding her throne. You fools, she said quietly. You think the humans will negotiate with you after you overthrow your own leader during a crisis. We think, Drax replied coldly, that offering them your head might improve our position. The humans understand the concept of scapegoats, I believe. Understanding dawned on Zora. You intend to blame everything on me. You ordered the attack, Drax said simply, against considerable advice to the contrary. The recordings will verify this. Doctored recordings, Zora countered. Drax smiled thinly. Perhaps, But the humans won't know that. Now you can come quietly, or... The palace shook violently, interrupting him. Warning sirens blared throughout the complex. What was that? Drax demanded. Admiral Meklov checked his tactical display, his bioluminescence fading to near darkness. Orbital bombardment. Precision strike on this palace. Impossible. Drax shouted. Our planetary shields have been selectively deactivated, came a new voice. All eyes turned to see Diplomatic Officer Tenza enter the chamber. I took the liberty of transmitting everything happening in this room to the human fleet. You betrayed us. Drax was incredulous. I betrayed those who would betray the Empress, Tenza corrected. The humans were quite interested to learn of your coup attempt, High Counselor. They find the concept of negotiating with the true power, while the legitimate ruler is imprisoned, distasteful. Another impact rocked the palace. They're targeting the guard barracks, Meklov reported, astonished. How do they know exactly where? I provided detailed schematics, Tenza said calmly. Zara stared at her diplomatic officer in shock. You've been working with them all along. Not working with them, your radiance. Studying them. Understanding them. Something none of your other advisors bothered to do. Tenza approached the throne. The humans have a proposition. They will cease fire immediately if you, and only you, will meet with their fleet commander. Alone. Absolutely not, Drax sputtered. It's a trap. Perhaps, Zora said, finding her composure. But unlike you, Counselor, I am willing to risk my life to save our people. She turned to Tenza. Arrange transport. I will meet their commander. 6 hours later, Empress Zora's shuttle approached the massive human flagship Turan Resolve. She had dismissed her guards, heeding the humans' requirement that she come alone. Clad in formal diplomatic attire rather than her usual royal regalia, she felt strangely vulnerable. The shuttle docked with surprising smoothness. As the airlock cycled, Zora prepared herself for whatever waited on the other side. Imprisonment, humiliation, perhaps even execution. But nothing prepared her for what she actually found. A single human stood waiting, not surrounded by guards or weapons, just one man of average height, with dark skin and silver-streaked hair. He wore what appeared to be a formal uniform, but no visible weapons. Empress Zora, he said, inclining his head slightly. I am Admiral Thomas Chen, commander of the United Earth Defense Fleet. Thank you for coming. Zara studied him, confused by the lack of security. You're either very confident or very foolish, Admiral. Perhaps both, Chen replied with the ghost of a smile. Please, follow me. He led her not to a detention center or interrogation room, but to what appeared to be a conference room. Through large viewing ports, Zora could see the breathtaking scale of the human fleet surrounding her. The room contained a single round table with 2 chairs. Please sit, Chen gestured. As Zora complied, he took the seat opposite her. I appreciate your courage in coming here. Did I have a choice? Zara asked bitterly. There are always choices, Empress. Yours led to this moment as mine did. Your choices have certainly proven more successful, Zara acknowledged. I underestimated your species, a mistake I won't repeat. Chen nodded. That underestimation is precisely why we're having this conversation. You see, we knew the Caldari were watching us. We allowed you to see what we wanted you to see. A deliberate deception, Zara realized. You concealed your true military capabilities. We concealed many things, Chen confirmed, just as your empire has its secrets. He touched a control, and a holographic display appeared between them. It showed detailed schematics of Caldari technology, weapons, shields, FTL drives, alongside human equivalents. We've been studying you for decades, Chen explained, since long before official first contact. We learned your languages, analyzed your technology, mapped your empire. When you began expanding toward our colonies, we prepared accordingly. Why reveal yourselves now? Zara asked. You could have continued the deception. Because deception leads to miscalculation, as you've discovered. We want genuine peace, Empress, not temporary advantage. Zara studied the human, searching for deception. If you want peace, why this show of force? Why bring 2,000 warships to my doorstep? Chen's expression hardened slightly. Because your empire only respects strength, and because your attack on our colonies killed 18,000 civilians. Children, Empress, families. For the first time, Zara felt a flicker of genuine shame. I was told the attacks targeted military installations only. Another miscalculation, Chen said quietly. One of many. Silence fell between them. Outside the viewing port, Zora could see her homeworld, beautiful and vulnerable. What are your terms, Admiral? She finally asked. Chen deactivated the holographic display. Withdrawal of all Kildare forces from human-claimed space, recognition of our territorial boundaries, reparations for the lives lost, and, he paused, a genuine alliance against common threats. Zara blinked in surprise. Alliance? After what has happened. The Vrek horde grows stronger. The Solturian collective expands. Neither of our civilizations can face these threats alone. You would trust us after we attacked you. Not trust, Chen clarified. Not yet, but we understand something your council apparently doesn't. Removing a leader during war rarely solves problems. It usually creates new ones. Understanding dawned on Zara. You intervened to prevent my overthrow. Why? Because we've studied you personally, Empress. Your diplomatic officer, Tenza, has been quite informative. We believe you can learn from mistakes. Your counselors, evidently, cannot. Chen stood, moving to the viewing port. Humanity knows something about backing leaders into corners, Empress. It rarely ends well for anyone. We prefer to offer a path forward. Zara joined him at the window, looking out at the stars. You could have destroyed us. We could have, Chen agreed. And gained what? More enemies?